Blessings and peace to you. This is SB Favor Thinking Podcast, and my name is SB Favor. How are you doing today? It is Friday, August 20th, 2021. Another wonderful day and another day to be thankful. And as I always say, if you focus on what is good, then you can project something good to happen. So focus on what is good. If you are out there traveling about, make sure you are wearing your mask and using your hand sanitizer. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. I always remind you of this because I care. So please keep yourself safe and keep your family members safe. If you would like to donate to the podcast, you can donate at $SB Favor at Cash App. Once again, if you would like to donate to the podcast, you can donate at $SB Favor at Cash App. I appreciate your support. The topic of this episode is how to deal with a toxic person. How do you know if you are toxic? You never know what's inside of you unless you go through something, it comes out of you. So how do you know? How do you know if you are a toxic person? And how to deal with somebody that's just toxic? Well, first I want to define what a toxic person is. A toxic person is someone that has unresolved issues, unresolved traumas, negative. They're always negative. No matter what is going on, no matter what you say to that person, they are negative. They don't celebrate others. If you go to them and try to have a conversation about something that's positive, they flip it and they try to make the conversation negative. That's a toxic person. They're walking around with unresolved issues and traumas from something that happened to them in their life. We all have the responsibility to work on ourselves. All of us have gone through different things in our life. And if we do the work daily, we can recognize behaviors that we need to change. It's simple as that. None of us are perfect. But when you recognize something about yourself that you need to change, then just do the work. You don't have to feel bad about it. You don't have to feel guilt or shame about it. Just do the work and be the best person that you can be. But sadly, when a person is toxic, and they're not, I'm laughing because, I just spoke in that word toxic. My tongue just went toxic. But anyway, when a person is, not working on themselves, they're toxic. And that comes from unresolved issues. Sadly, it could be something from their childhood, divorced parents. It could be anything. But the point of the matter is that we all should do the work on ourselves. That's the whole point. And we should know how to deal with someone that is toxic, because we all need some type of healing on one level or another. So how do you know when a person is toxic? How do you know? Number one, that person always wants attention. They want all of the attention on themselves. They don't celebrate others. They want all the attention. It could be at a party. It could be anything that's going on. And if they're not the focus of the attention, then they make themselves the attention. They want all of the attention. Number two, they're always creating or stirring up some type of drama. Something. They stir up drama. They make up stuff sometimes to just stir up some type of drama. You could be with that person that's toxic and you could be having a good time, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, they just say something crazy, or they might do something to somebody else. You could be at a restaurant. They might mistreat the waiter or the waitress. Number three, they do not respect other people's boundaries. They don't respect boundaries. If you tell them yes or no to something, they don't have no respect for boundaries. Number four, they're verbally abusive, which is a sign of some type of healing that needs to take place within them. Because how can you be verbally abusive to someone and not have any type of conviction or not even feel bad about it? A person that could be verbally abusive to another person and have no type of remorse, that's toxic behavior. They don't recognize that they are being abusive by how they speak, the words they use. How can you just say certain things to a person and not feel bad about it? Well, that's evidence that person is toxic. Number 5, they constantly wound and hurt others with no apology or accountability of their actions. Most people, when they do something wrong, they have some type of conscience and they will apologize or they just take note of their behavior. Well, a person that is toxic, they don't do that. They don't apologize. They're not accountable for anything because they, in their mind, they haven't done anything wrong. They could hurt somebody's feelings and just walk away and act like nothing happened. They're toxic. Number 6, they blame shift everything to others and see no wrong within themselves. They blame shift. They deflect everything. If you even tell them that something is wrong, they deflect the whole conversation in another direction because they don't want to confront themselves, which is a clue that they need healing. Because we all should want to confront ourselves. When we wake up in the morning, we should confront ourselves in prayer. We should confront ourselves when we are alone. It's healthy to confront yourself. It's healthy to examine yourself. It's healthy to look at yourself and say, okay, well, what did I say wrong today? Or what did I do wrong today? Did I hurt somebody? Did I hurt somebody in the past that I didn't apologize to? All of us have done some type of wrong to somebody, but the key factor is when you are accountable for the wrong that you've done, then you open up the door for healing to begin. When you are accountable, because you're willing to confront it. But when you deflect it and act like it didn't happen and act like you didn't do any wrong, that's toxic behavior. Number 8, that toxic person, they perceive a regular conversation as an argument. You could be trying to have a normal conversation with that person and they perceive it as an argument. How can you have a conversation with somebody having a low tone voice and yet you are perceived as trying to start an argument or you perceived as arguing? That's toxic behavior. That's that person that projects that. They're toxic. If they're projecting an argument when you're trying to have a normal conversation, that's toxic behavior. Number 9, they're constantly projecting negative behavior and words to others. They project it constantly. It's really, what comes out of their mouth is what's really going on with them, but they project it to the next person. The toxic person could be thinking all the wrong things, and the wrong things that they're thinking, they're projecting it out of their mouth to the people that's in their company. Number 10, they sabotage good, healthy relationships. They, that toxic person could be in a relationship with a healthy person. That toxic person could have healthy family members and healthy friends, and they'll sabotage the relationship. They'll do something that's just crazy. They'll say something, they'll act a certain way. They will cause division and discord to sabotage the relationship, because they won't only just sabotage that one relationship, they'll sabotage several relationships at once. So the question I want to ask you is this: how do you know if you're toxic? How do you know, or do you justify when somebody else is toxic? Have you done that? Do you know how to deal with a person that is toxic? Or do you just say to yourself, oh, that person is just being who they are. They're just being human. What about having standards? Do you have standards? Do you maintain standards in relationships, or do you not have standards at all? If you don't have any standards for relationships, I think you need to look at that. This topic is something that I thought about yesterday and earlier today. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. She sent me a text and she said, you need to talk about this topic, how to deal with toxic people. And I said, wow, it's something you said that, because I was just talking about the topic yesterday. How to deal with a toxic person. I personally deal with toxic people like this. I keep a distance. I minimize my conversation. I love them. I'll still have some type of relationship with them, but it has to be from a distance. I will minimize my conversation with them, making sure that when I have a conversation with them, I watch what I say. I'm very careful with what I say. It's sad to have to do that, but I have to remember who I'm talking to, because I don't want to get into a negative conversation. To deal with a toxic person, you also, you can't justify. Once again, I'm going to say it again. You can't justify the person's behavior. You have to recognize it for what it is and use the wisdom to keep a distance. Don't participate in toxic conversations, and don't accept toxic behavior when it's in your presence. Don't become a part of it. Distance yourself from it, because it's clear and obvious that that person needs some type of healing. It's clear and obvious that that individual is not working on themselves. And I'm not saying that we should look at people in a negative way and just say, oh, well, this person is toxic and that person is toxic. No, because we all need to look at ourselves as individuals. When you recognize that somebody is verbally abusive, when you recognize that a person is not accountable for their actions, then you have the choice to distance yourself. You have the choice to minimize your conversation with them. You have the choice to minimize your time with them. You can set the tone for the conversation. You can set standards for the relationship. If a person is abusive on a whole nother level, then I would suggest to cut the relationship off. If the person makes you feel bad about yourself, if they're not supportive, if they are physically abusive, you definitely have to cut the relationship off. But first and foremost, please recognize that the person that is toxic, they need healing. We all need healing, but healing comes at different levels. And the more and more you work on yourself, the better you will be healed. The first step for healing, for me personally, was to confront everything I went through that bothered me, the things that hurt me, the things that I didn't like, whether I was a teenager or a young kid or at any time in my life. The first step that I took was to confront it. Once I confronted it, I accepted it. I accept what happened to me. I accept the good and the bad. And when you accept it, then you take steps to move forward past it. We all need healing. And this topic is something, I'm sure I'm going to be talking about it again. But I just wanted to just touch the surface right now, because a lot of people are walking around functioning with toxic behavior and they have no idea. It's not normal to be hateful. It's not normal to have a mean spirit. It's not normal to devalue someone and make them feel bad. Anyone that does that is toxic. When you help others to feel good, to be encouraged, to have a higher self-esteem, then you've done something great. So examine yourself and make sure that you are not toxic. Because as I stated, we all need different levels of healing. Nobody is perfect, but we can be better. So I will be talking about this topic again, because it's something to really, really think about. And when you recognize that someone is toxic, it doesn't mean you have the license to mistreat them because they're acting crazy. No, it simply means that you have a greater accountability to set an example for that person. You have a greater accountability to love that person And I'm not talking about being in their presence every day and on the phone every day. I'm talking about when you come into contact with them, spread some love to them, because if they're toxic, that means they need healing. So listeners, I thank you so much for listening to SB Favorite Thinking Podcast. I appreciate you so much. And please share the podcast with others. You have been such a blessing to me. And I just want to keep reminding you of that, because when you encourage me, I can in return keep encouraging you. So please share the podcast with others. And if you need to reach me, you can reach me at sbfavor@yahoo.com via email. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at sbfavor. I also have a YouTube channel. Please click like and share the podcast with others. Please click the bell, though, so that you can receive a notification each time there is a new episode of SB Favorite Thinking Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and you have a good day.